Zoro. Yes, the demon of the Straw Hat Pirates, Roanoa Zoro. How strong will he be by the end of Wano? Now let's start with the most obvious power-up he received, which is Enma. We've been getting some interesting developments involving Enma specifically. We can go all the way back to when Zoro first held the blade, and you can see that Enma forces the haki into the blade. It sucks the haki out of the user's body. And if I'm not mistaken, it was stated that there have been people who tried to wield Enma and end up dying because of that. So you already have to be formidable in your own right to even hold this blade. But what we first seen when Zoro received Enma was that he was able to cut a cliff. Now, I believe that Zoro was already strong enough to cut a cliff. I don't think that that's something that was, you know, super amazing. Like, we seen Zoro against Pika, you know what I mean? We seen what he's able to cut. So him cutting that cliff wasn't a big deal. It's the fact that he did not have control on what he was cutting. The blade has a mind of its own almost. The second thing about Enma I want to bring up, and this is very important. This is very important. We just got this in chapter 1001. Zoro is up there in the fight alongside Killer, Luffy, Law, and Kid versus Big Mom and Kaido. And Zoro and Killer had did a combination of attacks. And after they landed their attacks, Zoro said, I guess I have to use more of Enma power. Initially, I thought that Enma was a blade to help you train to use your haki more efficiently. It forces you to be able to use your haki more efficiently. But now that he says Enma's power, it clicks in your head that this blade doesn't train you. No, this blade itself is extra firepower. So depending on how much haki you put into it, I guess it gives it that much more firepower is what we're getting from this blade. I mean, we know that Enma was one of the blades responsible for cutting Kaido. And now Zoro said he got to use more of Enma's power to even do damage to Kaido. So what I'm thinking is going to end up happening in this fight with Enma specifically is that Zoro is going to end up cutting Kaido. Like, Zoro's going to be the second person to do a Odin level cut on Kaido. Because we've seen the Scabbers, they got a few sashes in, but Kaido basically said you wasn't able to open the old wound. You wasn't able to get as deep as Odin got. I think Zoro will be able to do that. But as a result, Zoro will have to use every ounce of his haki. And once he do that, that will give him the necessary firepower to be able to do significant damage to Kaido. Let's talk about something that is still a possibility, but I don't know if it's going to happen based on how the story is going so far. I don't think that this is really going to be a thing in Zoro's repertoire in the near future. And I'm talking about Ryo, but I do think there's a possibility because he's alongside Luffy. He sees Luffy being able to use this, and he know that Luffy trained to get this. So it's not out the realm of possibility for me, for Zoro, Luffy, and Sanji to eventually learn Ryo, especially since Zoro doesn't have any Devil Fruit power, and he's going to eventually have to fight on par with people with some of the strongest swordsmen in the world. Vista comes to mind. No, I'm just playing. But no, Vista is really actually that strong. So that's Ryo. I don't know how big of a possibility it is, but the fact that Luffy has Ryo ups Zoro's chances of getting Ryo, if not by the end of Wano, in between arcs. But in between Wano and whatever the next arc is after Wano, I think Zoro has a possibility of learning Ryo. And the thing about Zoro learning these new abilities, right? Learning how to properly use Enma so fast, learning Ryo, like I think there's a possibility, and honing those other techniques and styles of fighting, it's so, it can happen, you know what I mean? Like it's actually a high percentage it can happen, because we see that Zoro picks up on things very easily. Even when you think about chapter 1001, Zoro saves Luffy using Kinemon's Firefox technique that he only learned in what, a few days? So we know that Zoro was able to pick up on abilities, techniques, and fighting styles very quickly. We already know this, not to mention that we already know that Zoro has ancestors coming from Ryuma, who arguably is probably the strongest swordsman to ever exist. Arguably, there can be an argument made for Ryuma being stronger than a prime Mihawk. Now, I don't know about that. That's a little shaky ground to talk about. But an argument could be made, specifically when we start talking about black blades and you creating your black blades. Mihawk said something about creating your black blade, and Ryuma created his own black blade later in his lifetime. So I don't know if you have to. I don't think black blade is a time thing. Creating black blade is necessarily a time thing. It's more of a skill, technique, power thing, where you learn, once you learn and harness your blades, make that relationship with your blades like Zoro has. Zoro actually creates real relationships with his blades. You see him actually speaking to his katanas at certain points of the story. Zoro actually, he'll say things like, yo, this blade is a problem child. He referred to his blades as a problem child, as if they're living beings. So Zoro creates a relationship with his blades, plus constantly using haki into it, and traveling around the new world, gaining XP and learning new things from people he meet, and just being in the land of Wano, the home of the samurai, the birthplace of samurai in the One Piece universe. There's a high possibility that Zoro learns how to harness and create and gain his own black blade by the end of Wano. The last thing I want to talk about that I don't think get talked about enough when it comes to Zoro, there's this demon thing going on with him that I don't think is talked about enough. Back all the way back in Eni's lobby, Zoro's final technique, when he has the other Zoros surrounding him, it's the non-sword style attack. We see a lot that Zoro has this demon aura about him. Even Zoro versus Killer. If you look at that fight in the anime, right before Zoro launches out his final attack on Killer, there's this aura that emanates from Zoro that just remind me of demonic energy. Like it's always demonic energy surrounding Zoro, and I don't know if Zoro is fully aware that he has those abilities, but I think it's about that time. I think once he learned about his ancestors, where he come from, what is the true hidden secret behind the Ryuma bloodline? What is truly getting passed down? I think he will be able to fully harness his demonic techniques. Not to mention his eye. I don't know if he's going to open his eyes and get his Sharingan or what. I don't know what it's going to be. But those are just some things I want to throw out there for Zoro. So, after saying all that, the Black Blade, Emma, the demonic energy, how quickly he learns things, his potential, who his ancestors are, where do I think Zoro will fall when it comes to how powerful he is by the end of Wano? What I'm thinking is, Zoro, first of all, at the very least, Zoro is going to be first commander level. That means he's on the same level as people like King and Katakuri. Ben Beckman is another story because I think he might potentially be on another level by the way the world government talks about Shanks' crew. So King and Katakuri, I think Zoro is at least on the same tier as them by the end of Wano. What I think his bounty will jump to, skyrocket to, is somewhere in the 1 billion. And I think he might even, because I think Luffy's going to take a huge, because I think Luffy is going to end up getting a lot of the credit anyway. Even if it stays like this, whereas all of them versus Big Mom and Kaido, I think Luffy might get the majority of the credit. So I'm thinking Luffy's going to take a huge jump, and Zoro is going to jump to somewhere around where Luffy is at right now. So I'm thinking somewhere around 1.5 billion for Zoro by the end of Wano Country, by the end of this arc.